Hey, it's Chris, and in this video I'm going to answer the question, does the Nike Vaporfly Next Percent get slower? So there's a lot of questions about whether you really need to save this shoe for race day because it's only got one marathon in it and it kind of just gives up or gets slower after that and you lose the benefit of all that ZoomX foam and the carbon plate. And so in this video we're going to look at the data behind that and see whether it does seem to slow down. So if you're in a rush, I will give you the short answer now, and the answer is no. I think that it maintains its speed, and we'll talk about why it does that in this video, and we'll look at some data. But also, I'm a psychologist, and I'll talk about why I think maybe people feel like it's slowing down when it actually isn't. So I've done a ton of miles in these shoes. So that's my third pair. This is actually the Next Percent 2. I've got the original here, and I ran this shoe. You can see it's got a hole in. In fact, I have a whole video because I ran these to destruction. Got nearly 1,000 kilometers out of them before I got this little rip. It's otherwise good. So you can run them for 1,000 kilometers. If you want to see how far you can get out of them, go check out that other video. I'll link to it below. But even if the shoe will last that long, there's a question of, well, will it give up on performance? So to test that, what I've done is that was my first pair. This is my second pair, and I ran a 30-minute tempo run, just running pretty much a 5-10k race pace, in just a time-boxed 30-minute run in these, which I'd run maybe like 600 kilometers in. And then, so I also did the same, another tempo run, same route, time-boxed 30 minutes, running as far as I could in these, which are a brand new pair of the Next Percent 2s, and we can compare the results. So let's head over and have a gander at the stats. Got some run data here, and this is a tempo run that I did back in March. So it was time boxed to 30 minutes, and I was just pretty much running not quite as fast as I can, but pretty close to race pace, and I made it just over 7 kilometers, so running at 4:12 per kilometer. And I did this in my Nike Vaporfly Next Percent, so the original ones. And at this point, I had put about 600 kilometers into the shoes when I did this run. So now if we go and compare that, I've got another tempo run here. So this is one that I did, now we're in June, and again it's the same, it's a time boxed run, just going hard for 30 minutes. And here I was slightly slower, so I was 4:15 per kilometer. And here I was in my Nike Vaporfly Next Percent 2, so the brand new pair that I was running in. So I'm actually running slightly slower in the new pair than I was doing in the old pair. So the pair with 600 kilometers in actually went faster than the new pair that only had about 20 or 30 kilometers in when I went it for the run. Now there are of course other factors. So in this more recent run, my heart rate was a lot higher. I think because it was a lot warmer, my fueling was about the same. They were both done at about the same time, so they were both done 7-8 o'clock in the morning. On a Friday, I get up and do my tempo run. It's the same route, so there's no elevation changes. And yet, somehow I went faster here. Now, the temperature could have been a factor, could have just been one of those things where I was just feeling especially good on that day. But one thing that is clear is that these shoes haven't slowed down. If I'd have lost all of the benefit of the ZoomX foam and the carbon plating, then you would definitely expect this run with the 600 kilometers in to be slower than this one with the almost brand new shoes. And it isn't the case. They're pretty much comparable. In fact, The shoes with a lot of mileage in are slightly quicker. I don't think there'd be any statistical significance there, but they've certainly not lost any performance from having that amount of mileage in them. Okay, so the stats suggest that this is pretty comparable, like having done 600 kilometers in it, doesn't seem to be any slower than when a new pair. So what's going on? Have a couple of people said that it feels a bit slower after a while? Well, let's consider a couple of reasons. So one is that maybe the shoe does start feeling different after 50, 100, 200 kilometers, but that doesn't actually affect performance. So like kind of breaking a shoe in, wearing it in, it's going to feel a bit more maybe, and maybe the shoe genuinely does feel different, but actually you're still getting all that return of energy, and so it's not actually any slower. It just feels a bit different. That's one explanation. Another explanation, which I think is more likely, is that we just get used to the feel of the shoe. So when you first put these on, they are super bouncy. And if you ever try and do any stretches, like a quad stretch where you're balancing on one leg, you'll find it extra hard in these shoes because they are a bit bouncy and wobbly. And what probably happens is the first time we put them on, it feels super different to other shoes we've had, and then we just get used to it. So in the same way that when you maybe first switch over from manual brakes to hydraulic brakes on your bike, at first it feels like the brakes are super sensitive, and then it just becomes that's what brakes feels like. Or when you get into a hot bath and it's unbearably hot, but then 5 minutes later you're like, this is fine, I could tolerate a bit hotter. Or say I switch between Brooks and Hoka for like just walking around. I don't, people ask me what non-running shoe size I am, but I just wear running shoes the whole time. And the Hokas with the massive cushioning, if I spend too long in those, I go to any other shoe and I'm like, oh, this hurts so much. How is the ground so tough? But then after a couple of days, I forget that I had that super cushioning in my Brooks, and everything just feels normal again. So what I think is probably happening is that people are putting these on, it feels super different, they're running it for a little bit, and then it feels normal again, and they're like, oh, that benefit is gone. But what's really happened is that our minds have just made this the new normal and got used to it, and that's why it feels like maybe we're not getting the same return we did, but actually the data, albeit the limited data we have here, suggests that you can run for 600 kilometers in the shoes and they will feel just as good as new. Hopefully that was useful. If so, please give this video a thumbs up. And if you want more content about running, then hit the subscribe button, because that's what my channel is all about. And I would love to see you in another video.